And welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. My name is Lewis, and next to me, as always, is my beautiful co-host Laraib. As we are ready and excited to break down Week 16 of the NFL season. Yes, we have 3 weeks left of the NFL season, and it is the holiday season, Laraib. So happy holidays to all those celebrating around the world, listening to this podcast. We're so excited to have you with us throughout the holiday season. And if you are watching this, we're glad that we are part of your holiday season for our 101st episode.
Ooh,
Thanks for the
ooh.
reception on that last episode. We will always be here ready and breaking down NFL content. We were not able to film on Tuesday, but we will talk about the Thursday night game involving the Saints that is happening tonight. So this episode will be dropping before the game on Thursday. So all the lines and everything will be according to at this point at Thursday at 1 p.m. Laura, anything you want to say before we hop into these games?
Yeah, I mean, this is the final stretch of the season, right? We talk about how it's a marathon, not a sprint, but this is the sprint portion of the season. This is the last 3 games. If you want to make the playoffs, if you want to miss the playoffs, this is where you could say this is the witching hour of the NFL season, where playoffs become sitting at home on the couch, and sitting at home on the couch turns into playoff games, Lewis. But without further ado, let's get into week 16, starting with Thursday Night Football. Your Saints traveling to Los Angeles to play the Rams, Lewis. And I know there's a lot of bad blood between these two teams, both of them at 7-7. Now, what can the Saints do after a, really, mediocre season to kind of win this game and kind of try and get that playoff spot, Lewis?
Well, what they need to do is not turn over. They need to win the turnover battle. That's been the biggest thing all season long. Is in the games, especially against good teams, is we get behind early by losing the turnover battle, and we have to dig ourselves out of a hole every single game. Now, against this Rams defense, which is bottom half in the league and forcing turnovers, you need to be able to take care of the ball and take advantage of this decent Rams defense. I really like the coaching. I don't love the personnel. They've been kind of playing above their skill level over in Los Angeles. And you need to, be able to run the ball, chew the clock, get the ball out of Matt Stafford's hands. And you got to hope Matt Stafford gives you one or two to really try to control this game. Because I think the Rams' identity is stronger than what any of the Saints' identity is at this point in the season of, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Matt Stafford. Those three right there and the prolific passing game is going to keep them in a lot of games. Whereas the Saints, you will get Chris Olave back for this game. So it'll be Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed on the outside. You saw Juwan Johnson finally get involved in the passing game last week. You really need to have a more aggressive passing offense to try to win this game on the road. And then defensively, you need to force turnovers. And as much as the Saints team has turmoiled me all season long, and there is a part of me that really wants to lose tonight just so it can be over. I think the Saints are going to win. This is the spot that we were in last year too, where you go on the road in Cleveland, you'll beat a team that they were technically favored at that point, and it's like, oh shoot, all we control our destiny from here. If we win out, we make the playoffs. And then you probably lose to Tampa next week, and it doesn't, matter for anything. But I think the Saints win in an upset here, Laura. What do you think?
I have to disagree, unfortunately for you, Lewis. I think the big thing for me the season has for the Rams has been Matt Stafford, right? I really thought before the season he was going to have a really bad year. I thought, this is a really bad Rams team. They don't really have the greatest personnel. I think they're just kind of an off year. But credit to Matt Stafford for really standing in there and having a really good season so far. And I think the Saints defense, Lewis, we talk about their front seven, even their front four, hasn't been able to generate pressure all year long. I think Matt Stafford's going to have a clean pocket all night and just be dotting up this Saints secondary. Like you mentioned, when you can't generate any pressure, it doesn't matter how good your secondary is with Alontae Taylor and Paulson Adebo and Marshawn Lattimore if they have to be covering guys for 7 seconds or plus. And I think Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are going to just tear up this secondary. And then Kyron Williams, Lewis, he's been a real bright spot for this rushing attack for the Rams. I think he also has a great game. I just feel like the Rams in this spot at home, 7-7, with just a better head coach. I think they get it done at home, 24-20.
And I think Saints keep their season alive. I'm finally going all in on my Saints hype this season. Why? I guess I'm bored, but I'm going Saints in this game. I'm going to go a high scoring game. I'm going 31 to Rams 28. send off by Groupie after a missed PI on the Rams. That's my dream scenario. And I hope they all cry. Anyway, because I got a lot of freaking messages this week. Oh, flashback to that memorable game. Whatever. Um, let's move along to our next game, Laura. We're going all the way to Sunday, Christmas Eve. Ho, ho, ho. Where you have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A lot of playoff seeding implications in this game, Laura. Tampa is favored by 2.5 points at home, which is interesting because it feels like the line was Jacksonville early on in the week, but now let's flip the whole 3 points on Wednesday here. Unsure why. It says Trevor Lawrence is questionable for this game, but it really feels like there's no way he won't play in this matchup. But who do you like here, Rob?
I really have to like the Jacksonville Jaguars in this game. And that's not because I like the Jaguars so much. It's just how consistent the Buccaneers have been, right? Baker Mayfield goes into Lambeau, has a perfect passer rating the first time the opposing quarterback has ever done that. And then now they're going to come back home and I think they're just going to throw up a stinker. This is kind of how their season's gone all year long. They've been mid at best, 7-7. They've got some nice bright spots with, Rashad White in the passing attack and on the rushing ground game. He's just been a absolute bright spot. But besides that, it's just inconsistencies all across the board. Their defense gets older by the week, in my opinion. Jordan Love, really didn't, have the greatest game, and they still put up, 26, 27 on this Bucks defense last week. I think for the Jacksonville Jaguars, this is a kind of a must-win game. I know they have all those tiebreakers, Lewis, but they've kind of been sliding, sitting here at 8-6, kind of tied with everyone else in that division now. They can still easily win their division with a couple of games going, but I think this is going to be a huge game on the road for their confidence. And even if, like you said, Trevor Lawrence questionable, but they need this one. So I like the Jaguars on the road 27-20.
Well, you mentioned inconsistent and disappointing, and that's kind of been the Jaguars' season, Laura. It seemed like early on in the season they had an identity. It was Travis Etienne running the ball, establishing the run, and then you had the big, shots to guys like Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk. Ever since Christian Kirk has been out, and first off, even when he was there, the running game started to really decline, which is strange. You think later in the season, that's when it starts to thrive. Maybe it's ETN finally, getting a lot of carries, starting to catch up to him. That offensive line is a bit banged up into this game. And no Christian Kirk really hurts just the flow of this offense because he is, he's not the sexy catcher like Calvin Ridley is, but he's the end in between the numbers, third down conversion type of receiver who's been so consistent for them. And now that he's been out, they've really struggled offensively. So now going into Tampa, who are starting to kind of find themselves offensively, Laraib. I'll give Baker this. He's been good this season. He's been good. He has his moments, classic Baker moments, and maybe, I'm falling in the Baker cycle again with not knowing exactly what happens next. But I do think I like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a bit more in this spot. You're right. It doesn't even matter if they're home or away. It's kind of just always an inconsistent effort. But I think they have a good closing stretch to the season. I like the Buccaneers in this one. I'm going to go fairly lower scoring. I'm going to go Bucks 23 to Jaguars 16.
Well, that will certainly be an interesting game to watch, Lewis. But let's go ahead and move on to another Sunday game with the Dallas Cowboys going to Miami to play the Dolphins. Miami -1, Lewis, at home. And I just think that's a ridiculous number, to be quite frank. This Cowboys team just beats this Dolphins team on every single level. You could say Tyreek Hill is that one X factor, but besides that, this Cowboys team is better on all fronts. And I think after the beating they took to the Bills last week, maybe the hottest team or the second hottest team in the AFC right now, I think they're going into Miami against this Dolphins team who hasn't beaten anybody with a winning record this season so far, Lewis, and they lay the wood. Pause on that part. I think Dak Prescott reels himself back into the playoff race with an outstanding game against a Dolphins team that we know is fraudulent. They can't generate any pressure. Now, Jaden Phillips has been out for a couple weeks still. Congratulations. You beat the Jets by 30 points. This is not the Jets you're facing this week. This is the Dallas Cowboys coming into town, and I think they whoop them, Lewis.
I mean, I wouldn't say this is going to be a complete beatdown, Larob. I think we're going to learn a lot about these two teams because it feels like both of these teams finally get to have a true challenge this late into the season. Obviously, we saw the Cowboys beat the Eagles pretty badly a few weeks ago, But then that same Cowboys team got demolished by the 49ers, and they've already lost to that Eagles team. So I haven't seen this Cowboys team do anything. You mentioned the Dolphins. What signature win the Cowboys have all season? You could say the Eagles win, but granted, they've already lost to the Eagles. So it's not like they have dominated a good team, you know? So, and the Eagles, who are reeling, by the way. So right now, the Cowboys, you mentioned all these Dolphins things, but how am I supposed to be impressed with them? I do like them better in this game because I think they have a more well-rounded team, especially at this point in the year, where it feels like the Dolphins are so Tyreek reliant that they really can't get their running game going against good defenses, and they kind of get pounded like the Cowboys got pounded. So I think we're going to learn a lot about these teams, but I just think the Cowboys have Dak Prescott, especially Dak Prescott, Mike McCarthy, have been in bigger games and are more battle tested than Tua and Mike McDaniel. So I give them the edge here. I like Dallas to win in this one, but I think I could see a world where the Cowboys win this. I mean, the Dolphins win this at home.
I certainly can't, Lewis. We saw Tua this past week talk about he kept the receipts from what people were saying about him. I mean, what an absolute cornball. You are Tyreek Hill dependent. You are Jalen Waddle
What?
dependent. You do not raise your team at all, bud. I mean, you're just yapping a whole lot of nothing. You haven't started a single playoff game. I mean, you're talking all this garbage, and the Cowboys team is going to come into Miami and just beat y'all down. I like the Cowboys 31-20.
Yeah, I mean, I get having confidence in yourself, and yeah, I'm gonna prove the haters wrong. Whatever you need to force motivation, but it's a little self-serving for Tua to say all of this when you mention it. He has a very elite system around him, and he's acting like we didn't see him without said system, even without Tyreek Hill. We saw how he looks, unless he's playing against a garbage can of a team. That being said, I am picking the Cowboys in this one. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than people would expect. The line is 49.5. So I'm going to go Cowboys 20 to Dolphins 17. I think Cowboys cover. Next game, Laura, we're going to go ahead all the way to Christmas Day. We have a triple header this day. Too bad the other games are Garbaggio. So we'll skip right ahead to probably one of the biggest games of this season so far. Two of the best teams in the NFL record-wise. We have the Baltimore Ravens at 11-3 traveling to the 49ers 11-3. San Francisco is favored by a whopping 5 points at home here, Laraib. Who do you like?
Who do I like? Of course, I got to go with the Baltimore Ravens in this one, Lewis. I think Lamar Jackson is playing at MVP level right now, unlike the opposing quarterback, if I'm going to be honest. You've talked about this all season long. Teams are riding high, and then teams that are also riding high, but maybe not as high. I think this 49ers team is red hot, and it's time for them to cool off just a little bit, Lewis. I think Brock Purdy loses this game in an embarrassing fashion, and his MVP odds drop really low. I think this Ravens defense comes into town and handles business. It's a lot harder to say how you're going to defeat this 49ers offense, but I think, we've seen them play an elite level all season long. I think Roquan Smith there as an imposing presence in the middle of the field is going to really be the difference in this game. And the Ravens, they lose Keontae Mitchell, a good rookie running back for the rest of the season, messing up his knee really badly. But I think the Ravens, of course, X factors Lamar Jackson offense. As long as he keeps those legs moving, these are two really run heavy teams, Lewis, and who play solid defense. I think this is gonna be a really fun game to watch. But I think the Ravens, they need this one. Well, I don't think they need this one, actually. They're already secured the playoffs. But I think I just like them a lot more than the 49ers. I like their offensive line, what they do. I like John Harbaugh in a big spot like this on Christmas. I think Lamar Jackson goes out there and has a game.
Now you're saying this as if the Ravens have been an elite offense all season long. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. Yes, they are 11-3, but offensively, they've been very shaky the entire season, especially since the loss of Mark Andrews trying to find their offensive identity. And to think they're going to go on the road into San Francisco, and as you said, you really like them in this game. You like that matchup against Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, who will be shutting down a run game that was rumored to have Mark Ingram to come in and try to, get some reps in that system. I just don't believe in this offense. I think even in that Jacksonville game, They just kept playing with their food and playing with their food, and they could never really just put the game away. They had to keep, the Jags in the game. You can't do that with the 49ers. With this offensive talent, we saw what happened in the Eagles game. They go down 6-0, and because the Eagles couldn't score touchdowns, and so they had to settle for field goals, they had a scoreless first quarter. At the end of the game, they had 42 points. This offense is on a completely different level when they start to figure you out, and it's a different player every time. And you mentioned this Ravens defense. I love this Ravens defense. I love Roquan Smith. I love Patrick Queen as an off-ball linebacker, but they don't get a consistent pass rush, and the back end of their defense can get got. And you mentioned Brock Purdy isn't playing like an MVP candidate. Although I agree he's not an MVP candidate, I think you can't discount how effective he's been for this offense. And just dismissing him in the way you did was pretty ignorant, in my opinion, because he has been playing his best football against the best teams this season. So I think the San Francisco 49ers, you mentioned it. Neither of these teams need this game. They're all both in a pretty good position. But I think the 49ers just flex their muscle in the rest of the league and say, this is what we were able to do to the Eagles, to the Cowboys, and now the Ravens. No one is on our level, and they dominate this Ravens team.
I just have to completely disagree. I think they're riding a little bit way too high off that wave, Lewis. Like you said, what has been the theme of the season? If you're riding too high, you gotta swing back down low. This
Right. So
Ravens,
instead of Chris McCaffrey having 40 points, it'll be George Kittle.
no, I think
I hope not.
This Ravens team is gonna come in, handle business on Christmas Day, and hand the 49ers their loss and what could be a potential Super Bowl preview, Lewis.
Hello.
But I like the Ravens 23-20.
Little Super Bowl rematch from 10 years ago. That would be certainly exciting. That'll do it for our highlighted games of the week. Now it's time to get through a lot of the other games of the week, Laraib. So we're going to go ahead and speed through some of these. A lot of teams, there's still a lot of teams who are vying for different playoff spots, and playoff seeding is huge at this point in the year. But I think everyone is kind of having a little bit of not fatigue, but everyone's just ready to get to the playoffs. And a lot of these games and a lot of these teams are starting to look towards the draft. And to be honest, so are we as fans, because this part of the season is only interesting for a few teams. So we're going to go ahead and rattle off some of these. We do have Saturday football again this week, Laraib, starting with the Bengals facing the Steelers. Bengals favored by 2.5 points. Who you got?
I have to have the Bengals, Lewis. I mean, Jake Browning has come in, has done a fantastic job as quarterback, and he's shown he can lead this offense. And that defense, of course, has been playing great. And then your Steelers, Lewis, who had a 77% chance to make the playoffs just a couple weeks ago, now sit at 3%. Even though they're 7-7, they have a 3% shot to make the playoffs, Lewis. Give me the Bengals 26-20.
Yeah, I mean, I don't totally disagree with you. I believe this Steelers team, especially after the lashing they've received by the media all week, George Pickens, his effort on some of these plays, and we saw it from Deontay Johnson in that first Bengals game, the lack of effort that he showed on a block. And it seems like Mike Tomlin's starting to lose his touch, and big questions will start to arise this offseason in Pittsburgh if Mike Tomlin doesn't finish, the season strong. And people are starting to say, who cares if all these winning records? Things aren't changing. They're staying the same. And some people, I mean, the grass isn't always greener, Steelers fans, but this would be a perfect spot for the Steelers to just turn around and get a win. But I just can't get there yet with this team. As long as Mitch Trubisky is the starting quarterback, I will not be picking them. I also agree with you. I like the Steelers. Bengals. I'm going to go Bengals 20, the Steelers 13. Next game up, Laura, we have the Buffalo Bills going to Los Angeles. Buffalo favored by 12.5. Who you got?
Buffalo 31-13. I mean, I'm excited for this Chargers team, Lewis, for the offseason, not right now. They fired Brandon Staley as head coach. They fired
New coach theory.
They fired their GM. No, I don't think Easton Stick has that kind of that fire in his gut in this one. So give me the Bills.
Yeah, I'm going with the Bills as well. I think this will be a dog walking, a team that is getting hot at the right time. I'm going to go Bills 34 to Chargers 7. Next game up, we are now in our Christmas Eve slate. You have the Indianapolis Colts traveling to Atlanta to face the Falcons. Falcons favored by 1.5. I'm going to go first, Rob. I like the Colts on the road in this game. This Falcons team is just in such disarray right now. Their offense can't get out of their own way. I think Arthur Smith is starting to kind of lose it. And it's seeming like that he will be fired at the end of this season amongst a lot of Falcons people online. And this is a team that may have just quit after last week. So, Derek Brown said it from the Panthers last week. He said they're on vacation just like us. Colts very much still in it. I think they win this game on the road.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This Falcons -1. I think Desmond Ritter has been benched once again. And
Yep.
this whole thing surrounding Bijan Robinson, you draft him so high, you don't utilize him at all. I like the Colts on the road, just like you, Lewis. Give me the Colts 27-20.
Draft him so high and don't utilize him at all. That doesn't sound like a Falcon skill player in the last 3 seasons. Next game up, we have the Seattle Seahawks after a huge, maybe season-saving win, traveling to Tennessee to face the Titans. Seattle favored by 2.5 on the road, and Geno is back for this one, Laraib. So I'm guessing you're going with the boys.
Of course, I got to ride with my Seahawks, even though I would love for them to lose these last couple games so we can draft Jaden
After that,
Daniels.
after that Eagles
But
win,
after that amazing performance, we have to go for it all. We have to go to the playoffs so we can get just ran over by some other team. Give me the Seahawks 26-20 as we beat a Titans team who lost to Case Keenum last week.
yeah, I think you're underselling your boys a little too much. I think they have a dominating performance and they blow the Titans out. I'm gonna go Seahawks 30 to Titans 10 in this ball game, even though the Titans
Ooh.
are at home, which they're a different animal. Next game up, NFC North matchup: Lions favored by 3.5 over the Vikings in Minnesota. I personally like the Lions in this one. Vikings just losing a little bit too much steam at this point in the year. Give me the Lions.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, Nick Mullins did put on a great show against the Bengals last week, but for the Lions team, if this game was outside, I'm taking the Vikings, but they're playing inside that closed stadium over there at in Minnesota. So I like the Lions. I think I'm praying Jared Goff. I need 2 touchdowns to Amon Ra. I need 2 touchdowns to Laporta, and I
Yep.
need 2 touchdowns to Jameer Gibbs in this one. Please,
Dang.
please pull through for me in this one. I like the I like the Lions 31-28 in what I think will be the highest scoring game of this weekend.
Vikings defense has been playing better with Brian Flores, so we'll see what happens in that one. Next game up, we have the worst offense in the NFL and the New York Jets hosting the worst defense in the NFL in the Washington Commanders. Jets favored by 3 at home. I'm gonna go with the Jets.
Yeah, I got just only thing I have written down is 10-7 Jets. There's not much else I can say.
Yep, and I was not even thinking about deviating from that. Next game up, we have the Green Bay Packers traveling to Carolina to face the Panthers. Green Bay favored by 5 points on the road. It feels like Green Bay's season is over after the last 2 disappointing losses. So honestly, this could be a Panthers spot to potentially cover in this one. And I do have them covering, but I do have Green Bay winning. I have Packers 17 to Panthers 16.
I have Packers winning at 26-17 just because I have Jordan Love on my fantasy team in a big spot because CJ Stroud isn't playing for me this week. And so I really like this Packers team to go out and just throw bombs down the field if I'm being quite frank. And like you mentioned, neither team have anything to play for. So, let's kind of relax a little and just let the offenses have fun.
All right. Well, our next game up, our final game of the noon slate, we have Cleveland traveling to Houston to face the Texans. Interesting history between these two teams. No CJ Stroud this week. It will be Case Keenum starting again, facing a revenge game against one of his 12 former teams. It just happens to be the Browns this time. Um, I am going with Cleveland on the road. It sucks for the Texans that this has to be the case where this would have been a really awesome game with CJ Stroud in there. And how awesome would it have been if Deshaun Watson was making his return to Houston? You might have to go to that one. But unfortunately, we were getting third string versus fourth string, and I'm going with the fourth string. Give me Joe Flacco and the boys 39-12.
Yeah, I really like this Browns team to make some noise, Lewis. Now, I know they're missing some pieces on the defensive side of the ball, but I think Joe Flacco going for that second Super Bowl ring, he's going to be fired up this week
50
in
fantasy points.
Houston. In in Houston. Now, this Texas team does play a lot better, especially that defense at home. Derek the Beast Stingley's always getting those picks at home, but I think Joe Flacco does just enough for this Browns team to win on the road 26-23.
All right. And then next game up, we have the Arizona Cardinals traveling to Chicago to face the Bears. Chicago's favored. Give me the Bears.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think they've been playing really solid football, Lewis. Just unfortunately they gave up that lead last week. But I like the Bears 26-20.
Yeah, my prediction was so good. I felt like such a genius, and then I
Wow,
couldn't
wow.
get it done. Joe Flacco, just his magic overcame me. The final game Sunday night. We have the Patriots at Denver. Gross game. Denver favored by 6.5. Still technically alive. I'm going with Denver. Bill Belichick's gonna get that call.
Yeah, I'm also going with Denver. The Pats, well, I will not discredit this Pats defense. So they've been playing great football the past, 5 weeks, but their
Mm-hmm.
offense is just horrendous, like bottom three NFL in the NFL horrendous. I think the Broncos handle business 17-10.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is one of the hardest spots. And Bill Belichick, he's putting that resume out there. So who knows what he does? This could be a very exciting game for the sickos out there. All right, final two games, both divisional games on Christmas Day. Thank God for NBA because first game up is the Raiders at the Chiefs. Chiefs favored by 10. Chiefs will dominate at home on Christmas. Big presents for Taylor Swift. I'm going with the Chiefs 30-10.
I'm going with the Chiefs 26-17.
All right, and final game, Eagles after a 3-game skid host the Giants favored by 13.5. Eagles, do they get their get back?
I think so, 31-17. But if they don't, Lewis, oh man, it's gonna be riots in the streets of Philadelphia.
If they can't beat the Giants, it'll be the worst Christmas for Philly fans in their entire history as a city. I don't know about any worse Christmases, but this could be the end of the Eagles as a team. I would personally kick them out of the playoffs. I don't care that they've already clinched. Anywho, that'll do it for all the games of the week. Before we go, we have our locks, upsets, and best bets of the week, Laraib. Starting with you, what is your upset of the week?
My upset this week has to be the Ravens. I mean, that's the best team on the board, even though they're on the road traveling from East Coast all the way to West Coast. I think this 49ers team slows down just a tad bit on offense, facing a stout Ravens defense as the Ravens pull off the upset as a Christmas miracle.
All right. And then my upset is going to be the New Orleans Saints getting a little late season juice here.
Mm-mm.
Third or no, fourth in the NFC and point differential. Hey, that's
Oh,
something.
okay.
That's something. This team, I don't know. If they win this game, they could reel me back in. So I'm kind of hoping for it because I miss some good Saints watching. Um, and then bet or lock of the week, Larab, I'm going with your Seattle Seahawks. This is easy
Nope.
money. It's the Titans. They're gonna win. Give me the Seahawks.
And for my lock of the week, I'm going with the Los Angeles Rams. Like I already mentioned, this Saints defense, Lewis, can't generate any pressure at all on the quarterback.
Hey,
Matt
6 sacks
Stafford,
last week.
Matt Stafford. Oh, really? Against Tommy DeVito, Tommy DeMito. I
Tommy
like Matt
Cutlets.
Stafford to stand tall and erect in the pocket and deal the ball to Cooper Cup, Puka Nakua, especially Cooper Cup. I need long bomb touchdowns, my boy. Give me the Rams as my lock.
All right. And then best bet of the week, Larab. I have Dallas +1 on the road. I just think they have the more experienced team, coach, and quarterback. And this is a big game. The Dolphins won't be ready for it. I like the Cowboys to cover.
And for my best bet, I'm going Colts +1 against this disorganized Falcons team that hasn't been good all season long. Now Taylor Heineke in at quarterback. I just think this is a bad spot for them. I think Jonathan Taylor might be playing in this game as well, coming back from that thumb injury. And so big game for the Colts as they keep themselves in the playoffs as my +1 as my best bet of the week.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode, Larab. We there have all of our picks locked, and we want to wish you all a happy holidays and Merry Christmas as we head towards that time. Enjoy some football that day. Enjoy spending time with your family, and get ready for a jam-packed Christmas post Christmas. What do we call that? Boxing Day in Canada. Episode where we break down the playoff picture and things will be so much jumbled up, changing. There's only so much left, and we are super excited to break it all down. But Laraib, I think that's gonna do it for today's episode. Anything else you want to say before we head out?
No, I think that's First and Goal podcast signing off.
Peace.